Studios presents the More Better Narrative podcast. This is episode 95 with BJ McMurtry, Jesse Nell, Mike Armine, and Mike Wolper.
There are some things on the Chinese menu that you don't get here. There are some things there, but like that was what you could eat, and like regionally how the food changed. Like in Xiamen, all the fish was just taken right out of the water because it's a coastal city, and it's just on your plate, right? Like they'll boil it or whatever, and it's cooked, and you'll eat it, but there's no spices, there's nothing. Where you go into the mainland, you go to places where they have like their peppercorns are really famous. Like everything is doused in this one regional thing, so like the food actually changes like province considerably.
That'd be great. Like it just completely at random, you move into this one area and it's like soul food. Like it just developed, and that's what they eat.
We're in the south central of China.
But that was the food. The food thing was really cool to learn, to get to taste like what things were famous for locally.
This dude tried chicken's blood.
Yeah, they handed me a.
It was like this little red cube that looked like, it almost looked like a fruit snack.
And
if you can believe it.
What is it? And they go, it's rice mixed with chicken's blood and deep fried. And I was like, you only live once. And I just put it down.
So
and
you actually just spoke out YOLO.
I
makes it far less douchey.
And and it was actually like quite delicious. I mean, that was it. I mean, there were what were the one? It was like chicken, like not knuckle, but like. It was little fried pieces of bone marrow.
I can't remember. I don't think I had that.
Okay, I think there was a few things that when we were told, it was one night in Hong Kong, and everyone was like,
I think that's a song.
One night in Hong Kong.
I'm really letting them out.
Yeah, isn't it? One night. Bangkok. Sorry.
Bangkok. But yeah, the food was delicious.
What was your favorite place for food?
For food.
I already know my answer.
Say it.
Yeah. When the same restaurant we ate twice in a row. You only went the second night. But we went to a restaurant 2 nights in a row in Shenzhen, and I had the same thing both nights. They ordered like different things, but I specifically was like, what was that thing called before?
Oh yeah, I remember.
Okay, can't pronounce it. Get it again.
Yeah, that was a good night.
It was braised beef with black beans, and then they served it with white rice because it was so salty.
Why's it gotta be white?
Because it was delicious. But white people are delicious.
Yeah. We are full of marbleized meat.
But it was one of the big differences in how they serve the meat is that in the U.S. they like cut it lean, so it's like all the fat is gone and whatnot. This was braised, and it still had all the fat on it. So the meat was really tender, and the fat that was still on it was like butter.
Yeah.
And then the black beans
that's
and white
actually a big
rice
thing. I mean, I remember
complimentary.
In the 90s, being from Texas, I actually know people who raise cattle. And it's a big issue because there are like Brazil and Japan own ranches, or actually I don't know if they own them or whatever, but they have herds of cattle that they buy from that we can't buy the meat from those cows because of the EPA and the fat content in those cows. And it's a big issue because a lot of Americans would like to eat those cows for exactly the reason he was talking about, because it has the fat content, like it's more marbleized than the cows that we can buy. But if you ever go out of the country and see a Brazilian steakhouse, go. Like
I'll pass.
If you've ever seen a Brazilian steakhouse out of this country, go.
I mean, I went to a Brazilian steakhouse in Barcelona that blew my mind. I was like, what the fuck have I been eating? Like, because obviously, because this is
cardboard and scotch tape.
Yeah, because what
and Elmer's glue.
Well, I remember when I was in Spain, like the first time I had chicken, I was like, it was like the first time I'd ever eaten chicken. Like, because whatever we're eating here
is not chicken.
Is just bland. Like it's.
If you eat food in Italy, you realize like what a food culture really is.
Mm-hmm.
We are not that. As much as we like to pretend that we're foodies, as stupid a term as that is, no.
That was the question that we got at all times. It was like if we weren't doing something, if we weren't traveling, if we weren't sound checking, if we weren't sleeping or playing a show, it was,
you want to eat?
You guys hungry?
Yeah. And it took a while for us to be like, no, we're good. Because we knew what that meant. We knew it meant a lot of
We knew
food.
it meant we'd sit down and we'd be there for 2.5 hours and they would order every plate on the menu. Like, we'd think we were done and then they'd show up with another plate and then another plate. And every single thing out of our mouth every time they put a plate down was, this is a lot of food. What is that?
Right. Well, Beijing,
just hovering with my chopsticks. What is that?
That first meal we had in Beijing, where that hash brown like substance came out, dude.
It was crazy.
Was so
it looked like a tiny slice of pizza.
Yeah.
But it tasted like a hash brown, and it was
and they had this
delicious.
Tofu.
It was like his dream food.
With scallions on top, and they had this tofu. It was deep fried, but it was the driest. I mean, it looked like cereal on the outside, right?
It looked like gigantic. It was like that big, and it looked like gigantic, like
Captain Crunch balls.
Yeah, Captain Crunch.
You bit into it, and it was like the juiciest, most seasoned tofu you'd ever had.
Wow,
it was delicious.
And it came with like spicy.
This peppercorn
stuff
you
on
could
the
like
side.
dip in.
You just kind of like pick it up, dip it, shove it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was our last night in Beijing. I was
you said
that, and I was like, I could go another.
We're done.
Month.
Yeah,
like tour. If tour was like that, which tour is not like that?
Yeah, if you could just re-up.
If we just re-up, right? Like if tour is not what we experienced, right? Like this is the most. Aside from the schlepping gear.
Well, I've been telling it that it's been simultaneously the most culture shock tour we've ever had, with the best hospitality we've ever received ever.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I could do easily another 2 months of this. Mm-hmm. Just having like a hotel.
I think Dave would have cracked because he wouldn't have been able to take the food any longer.
Was he not okay with it, or?
He was okay with it, and he liked it. He was just like, I don't like Chinese food that much to begin with, but having to eat it every single day for 3 weeks.
Like, all we wanted to do, when we got back
we got home and made a beeline for Lorenzo's.
And
we had pizza at like 2 in the morning.
I just want cheese!
Yeah, so it wasn't a food.
I want fucking fried dough covered in sugar tomato paste with cheese!
There actually was... before I had the braised beef in Shenzhen, the best thing I encountered was in Hong Kong, and this was like maybe like the third or fourth day, and it was like my dream thing. But it was complete. It wasn't vegan, but it was completely vegetarian. It was like this giant mound of cheese filled with noodles and broccoli, and it was delicious. It was awesome. And it was just like this giant chunk of cheese that just contained stuff. And I was like trying to...
There's a finger in here and this is so good. I don't even care.
As long as it's covered in cheese.
Yeah. Well, our first night in Xiamen, man, we went out to eat and the dude orders fish and they brought the fish out.
They brought the band.
It's got a face. There were like tons of faces on your fish and it took me a minute.
Tons of faces and then I ate a squid.
All right, and then
it was like
you dig in, but
it was still alive.
It was wiggling. It was weird. It was chewy.
Yeah.
Oh, they were delicious though.
Yeah.
I only had
Seafood
one. That's all I could handle.
Really, dude? I had like a plethora of those guys. I was like, yeah.
One of the best.
The thing that freaked me out was the fact that like I picked it up and the tentacles went, and I was like,
"Hey, buddy,
how's it going? High five, scrunch."
That was when I tried to feed the cat, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Matt kept yelling at you because you were feeding a stray cat in China,
Right.
which probably later became food.
The circle of life.
That was okay.
You fattened it up only so it got eaten.
Oh, wow.
One of the biggest culture shocks I've ever had was when my mother picked me up at the airport in Barcelona. We drove to the apartment.
That's in Georgia, right?
Yes. We drove to the apartment that she had rented, and it was moderately late, like on a Sunday, so there wasn't a lot open. And so we went to eat at this restaurant around the corner, which was a Chinese restaurant in Spain. And we go in.
Have 'em?
Well, I know, but
It
this
was a Mexican restaurant
well,
in America.
no, but the funny thing was
It was a Tim Hortons
but
in Vermont.
well, it was just weird going in and ordering Chinese food from people that are from China. You know, like, I mean, these are like straight off the boat from China, ordering Chinese food from them, and they're speaking Cantonese, like, or whatever language they speak.
Mandarin or
No, they're speaking. I forget the language. They don't speak Spanish in Barcelona. They speak that.
Spanglish.
No, it starts with the C. I forget what it's called.
Spanish.
No,
Fuck you.
it's
Portuguese?
Spanish. It's just
It's a
specific
Spanish
dialect of Spanish.
It's not even a dialect. It's an actual language. I forget what it's called. Look it up.
Google.
Google time.
I just woke up.
Yeah, that was the
I
worst
woke
part.
up like 10 minutes ago.
Even
Give
when
me
you
some-
got
give me a
Wi-Fi
break.
in mainland China, you didn't have Google, unless you used a VPN app.
Yeah.
You didn't have Facebook. You didn't have Twitter. There was no Google. However, they
Castilian.
Right.
Castilian is a dialect of Spanish. So you're
But
speaking,
it's a different language.
no, it's not.
They have different words.
It's a dialect specific to Spain. Take it from the Hispanic.
What, you're Hispanic?
My mom's Cuban.
I can't talk to you. You and Martin are bean eaters. Oh my god.
Holy shit.
No. So if you want to be intelligent about your racism,
Which defeats the purpose of being racist.
of course. Welcome to the joke, Jesse. I'm glad you can make it.
Please have a seat.
I get jokes.
Bean eater is specific to Central and South America, mostly Central America. Cuba, before Castro took over, was mostly Hispanics from Spain. So they're white Europeans living in the Caribbean.
The thing I like about
Racism.
Latin American racism
Is that it's so funny.
well, is how offended
How offended people are when you call them bean eaters.
well, how offended everyone who's not from Mexico gets about that when for the completely opposite reason you think they would, because you're comparing them to Mexicans, and most other Latin cultures don't like Mexicans.
Dude, Hispanics don't like other Hispanics.
Oh yeah.
At all. Like, Mexicans don't get along with Cubans, don't get along with Dominicans, don't get along with Hondurans.
It is amazing to me, like how like I work with a couple of Puerto Rican guys, and how openly racist they are to Mexicans.
Yeah.
I mean, they will talk like the amount of shit that, like, oh my god, that's one of the most offensive things I've ever heard.
We live right across the river from New Jersey. We don't even like them.
Right.
Imagine other countries living next to each other.
There's a lot of data to prove why we don't like them. There's a lot of...
Well, one, they're from New Jersey.
There's when the wind blows a certain way, we're reminded.
Well, it's
Anyway.
the same thing in Texas with Louisiana. I mean, with Oklahoma. I mean, those fucking Oklahoma people.
Well, speaking of wind blowing, that was one of the things that was apparently our good fortune was.
White people once again brought something great.
Yeah,
Wind.
they were telling us. I think Matt was saying it. Is that in we didn't really encounter that much pollution throughout the tour, just because like the winds were with us and were blowing stuff around.
Could that have anything to do with your exploding diarrhea?
That was only for the latter
When a
half.
butterfly flaps its wings.
BJ
No,
shits
but like
water on
when
the
we
other
were
side
in
of
the, on
planet.
the when we were on the train to Wuhan, I had asked Lin Chang. I was like, "Hey, is it just cloudy today?" And she's like, "No, that's every day."
Yeah.
Like you could see it. It was like
We only
gray.
encountered it when we were like passing through no man's land on the trains.
Because you go
and
through where the factories.
I think
were,
Matt and Lin
like
Chang encountered
Foxconn.
it like one night they went out, but then by the morning the winds had changed and blew it away.
The morning I
The
left
winds have
Shanghai.
changed.
The morning I left
winds
Shanghai
of change
was
blew
real
it
bad.
away.
Because
But
I'd be
they were
looking
saying
out
like
of the car.
the weather and like the low pollution that we encountered for most of the tour only happens like 5% of the time.
It was bad.
But
it was still bad.
So yeah,
I mean, my glasses were constantly coated. My eyes in Beijing were burning.
the humidity was
I could
awful, and I
taste
was
it
just
in
literally
Beijing.
melting the entire time.
In Shanghai, the morning I left Shanghai, you could, like, cities, you look out at the vast expanse of Shanghai, right? It's just fucking huge. I could only see, like, 5 or 6 buildings off the highway because you had this whitish, grayish, cloudy substance.
It was
air.
like somebody forgot to turn up the rendering depth on the video game. It's
Yeah.
like that's all you could
Yeah.
get.
Is that how you look at the world, BJ?
Yes.
You're essentially in PS1 Silent Hill.
Exactly.
You're at a show where you've got a sound guy who's just fog machine happy. Like it was one of those. You could see obviously
Because that
there's
was the
something
clean air that
behind
they
it.
were pumping into the
Yeah.
room.
Right. And in some nights it was.
Some nights breathing the fog machine was actually nicer
Kinda
than
tasty.
everything else. It was like
How are the crowds?
stoked.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing is that this is the first time in a long time where we were able to play for an entirely new people that had never heard us before. So people were just there a lot of time to check it out. So a lot of the nights you would see the room would be packed, and then as
the
each
set
song went on, the room would just dissipate, and you'd be left with this like maybe like 50 or 60 people that were like really into what was happening.
I'm into it.
And then there were nights where you play for like this, that you'd be in this huge venue, the size of the TLA, and you start off with like 200 people, and then there'd be like 30 left.
Thin
Then the
down.
next night you play at a place the size of the Khyber, for those who don't know, super small, where like 500 people are there, packed in on top of one another, there for the whole show. So like it was really strange, like where you went. And like places like Xiamen where no one really tours to, people were there just because it was an event.
Right.
And people were just stoked that you were there.
They were
So-
just stoked to have something going on.
Right. So it was one of those, like it felt very like an early tour where you would go to a place like some like really out of the way spot in like Connecticut where no one ever travels, you know, and it's like,
Nobody goes to Connecticut.
well, outside of Wallingford, you know, no. But like you go to, what was that one place we played in Connecticut where everybody had where I tried the peanut butter omelet. I won't talk about the other part of it.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly omelet.
I
What
don't
was the
even
name of that
remember.
town? Anyway,
Is there anything more American than that sentence?
it was great.
Where was that place in Connecticut where I had the peanut butter and jelly omelet?
Did you get extra mayonnaise on that?
No, there was no mayonnaise in it. But anyway, it was one of
It
those where
wasn't
you
even
show
his.
up. It was like a
Somebody
local
ordered
show.
it and they just have
Like
to
you
be
just
there and
show
tried
up
it.
and like it's just local bands and local kids just kind of throwing a show together, and it was like fun that way. There was not a lot of pressure. Beijing, I think there was a lot of pressure to make things good, but
It was a bit bigger, and it was more
Yeah.
like we walked in, we were like, oh.
yeah,
Okay.
Beijing we played like a really like crazy spot. But
The rest of the tour, we phoned it in.
no, like we gave it our all, but it was interesting to judge people's reactions because you had every night there would be a small handful of kids that were just like, I never thought you'd be here. He signed everything. I bought
Yeah.
everything. Then you'd have people that were like, I never heard of you. I've heard of you, but like this was great. Thank you for coming. And you had people that were like, I came just because it was an event, and I'm really happy with what I saw. And then you had people who just left.
Yeah.
So it was
That being said, there were some people who were like, I want my money back.
probably yeah.
There was also a handful of people at each show that were just like, you're white and you're American, can we get a picture together?
Right.
Did that happen a lot?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I was on a
Actually,
lot of...
I'm gonna be once I get all my photos and videos stuff together, I'm gonna post it in one lump sum, just a big tour blog and sort of like recap a bunch of stuff. But some couple of the later shows, I actually set up the GoPro at the back of the stage, and specifically in Chengdu, there was crazy response from the crowd that he was telling you before we started recording, about like calling out our names and be like, Armand, Mike Armand, we love you,
Alright,
BJ,
it was
we
BJ.
love you.
There was like one Mike Armine. The rest
There were a
all
couple.
BJs.
But like, but the thing is, before the show actually started, there were like 3 or 4 girls just sitting at the bar, and I'm like wandering around. I'm trying to get Wi-Fi and talk to people at home, and then they're like, "Hello, can we get your picture?" Or, you know, in broken English though, not as good as that, and they just took my picture in front of the stage. And then finally one of them asked me, they're like, "Are you in the band?" Like, they didn't even care if I was in the band at first. They were just like, "Can we get your picture?" Because I'm
What's amazing about this
fluffy white
story
dude.
is, I'm sure during that whole interaction, he was more concerned about the Wi-Fi issue.
I was just gonna say,
And he was.
here's BJ looking for Wi-Fi, and you got fucking Chinese bitches coming up to you being like, "Can we take your picture?"
And he's like, "Hold on."
Wait,
Hold on.
please.
What's the password? No, but like I was on trains. I would be
Wait.
on.
Let me finish this
Okay.
this Chengdu story. They were taking my picture. It was like one at a time. They'd have their friend take the picture, then the next one would walk up. Then finally one asked me, and they were like, "Are you in one of the bands playing?" Then I was like, "Yeah, I'm the drummer of Rosetta." And they're like, "Oh, okay, what's your name?" And I'm like, "BJ," and she goes, "Oh," and she pulls out this notebook. And she opens the flap, and it's the page just filled with Chinese. And she goes, "Is that you?" The entire thing is Chinese characters, except for the 2 letters in the middle that say BJ. She was like, "I researched you."
Creepy.
Because apparently the year 1 dudes, is that what it was?
Year 0.
Year 0, that's what it was. Year 0 dudes, which was the production group that brought us over, apparently were keeping some sort of tour blog, and a lot of it was mentioning him and me, specifically certain parts with me, and explaining their interactions with me and how I'm acting on the tour. And then people went absolutely bonkers, and that's where the kawaii thing came out. And they pronounced it differently, like it was the same word, but in Chinese they pronounce it differently. It was less like pronounced K and W, I think.
At some point in referencing a Simpsons episode, some Chinese something is going to end up in America, like a thing of laundry detergent with BJ's image.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's your answer, Fishbowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be on trains and little kids would be like,
There's pictures of BJ in
pointing
the
at me.
background as you go
Yeah.
by.
like they grab their bomb and they pinch and be like, look, and it would happen all the time in the subways. You'd have dudes get on the subway and just they're eyeing you up. They're like looking you up and down,
What are
and
you
talking
doing
about
here?
you and pointing to you as they talk about you in Mandarin or Cantonese.
We were in
You're like, wow, this is why it was so interesting to experience that, because you're just like the one.
Well, did you hear the one?
You don't
there-
experience
you don't
that anywhere
experience
else.
it.
Did you hear the one we were in? I think we were in Shanghai. And was it the bridge we crossed? Was that Shanghai?
No, that was Wuhan.
Wuhan. We were in Wuhan. We were crossing this gigantic bridge.
Over the Yangtze River.
It was like a couple kilometers long. It was like, he was saying like one of the longest bridges, like car bridges. And we're passing it. He was like, make sure you stand in the center. You can feel the vibrations of all the cars. But as we're going, I don't know if anybody else
That's
heard
safe.
it, but we're like this big group just going, and we're taking pictures as we're going. And these 2 girls walk by, and the only word I can recognize is foreigners.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like wild, man.
Like they just blurred that out. That's the only English word.
And
that
it was
they say.
preceded by fucking.
Fucking foreigners.
Pretty much.
But I just heard it was like yada 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 foreigners. And that was also when we saw like the kids peeing and pooping on the side of the road.
Yeah. That was,
There was
that
one
a thing.
there was one like I'm walking along and I see a mom pulling this girl's pants back up and she's like yay tall, can't be any older than like 2 or 3 years old. And I'm like, that puddle is piss. I'm going to walk around that.
Yeah.
And then we get to like the midpoint where they have like guards stationed and they're like British type guard. They're not moving. There's this one dude, I thought he was looking at me, and then I noticed every like 5 seconds he would look right, center, left, center. And he just stood there perfectly at attention, just looking at his head. But then all of a sudden I get past him, and there's just another like 2 or 3 year old squatting with his pants around his ankles, and the parents are just kind of like, and there's just like
poop falling out right in front of the guard station.
Yeah.
Cars driving by, people. But it was really interesting in that regard.
Dave said he saw more, like in different
Yeah,
places.
I
That
saw
was the
more.
first time that I was just like, oh, okay,
Very, very, very,
they
very.
do that.
Well, I mean, when you've got cities where there's there's a billion people living in one city.
Might as well poop on the ground.
What are you gonna do? Like what?
There's a billion people in the country.
Sorry. Yeah, but you have a crazy amount of people living in a city. Put it that way.
A billion.
What are you gonna
we'll go with
do?
a trillion.
What are you
Yeah,
gonna do? Like you gotta go.
I mean, if we're
They're
going
hiding some of them underground.
mole
So like
people.
I think that's the dead ones.
Crab people.
People, crab people.
Well, tell them when you
walk like crab,
talk about
look like
what we were talking about
people.
last night, or when you were dominating the conversation about
Last time I hang out with you.
about their perception of American music.
Oh man, this is the most absurd thing. Not that, and I don't mean that in a judgmental tone, but like from my Western perspective, they're asking me about bands that I like. So like, do you like Pink Floyd? And I'll tell them my opinion on Pink Floyd. I say they have one decent record and they've got one good song outside of that record. But other than that, it's bullshit to me.
Like fish.
I'm like, huh? Well, do you like Led Zeppelin? And I'm like, I cannot not like Led Zeppelin. Like I'm an American. I have to like Led Zeppelin.
Aren't they
They're like,
British?
well, do you like?
Yeah.
They're like, well, Fugazi's
Yeah.
my favorite. Mm-hmm. I'm like, dude, Fugazi's awesome. And they're like, and Nirvana, and then they'd be like, and The Devil Wear Prada,
Yeah.
and From Autumn to Ashes, my favorite. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, you've just in 1 minute asked me about 5 decades worth of music. And what you begin to realize is that they're getting all of this at once. They're getting Fugazi at the same time they're getting Nirvana, at the same time they're getting Devil's Wear Prada, at the same time they're getting Whitechapel. So I had kids come up to me and they're like, your voice, so much more monstrous than the guy from Linkin Park. And I'm like, it doesn't compute to me, because like Linkin Park is in a whole nother like thing.
It's not even the same thing.
I mean, yeah. Well, I guess it depends
when I heard them talk about like everything sort of like being newer that we thought it was like very old, it reminded me of that movie Eurotrip when they went to Bratislava and the guy was like, American, I love American, Miami Vice, #1 new show.
And like the people are like, well, what do you like to listen to in your home? Like, well, I listen to a lot of hip hop. And they're like, oh, so you like Lil Wayne? And I go, no. And like, well, what about Pitbull? And I'm like, absolutely not. And they'd be like, oh, so you must like A Tribe Called Quest? And I'm like, yes, I absolutely love A Tribe Called Quest. And well, what about Jay-Z? And I'm like, no, no. Once again, so there's leaps of time that they're totally missing.
Right.
And so what you start to see is that you start to see this mashup of culture. In that I was on another subway.
This is funny.
And I look at and these kids are looking me up and down, and so I do the same thing. Because at this point I'm starting to get a little flustered. I'm like, I'm American. Take one good fucking look.
Right.
Just have at it. And so they're looking me up and down. I look at them up and down. So I start at the top. Rockabilly haircut. Right. Sunglasses on.
Mm-hmm.
Diamond earrings, which I think were real. A death metal T-shirt that I can't read.
Mm-hmm.
All
It's
sorts
probably in Chinese.
of rockabilly-esque tattoos, and really like just scattered places. A pair of tight Levi's black jeans. Wallet chain. Brand new red Jordans. And I'm sitting here like, this doesn't...
Somebody put a little rockabilly in my death metal.
Somebody went to the internet and went to their random outfit generator for the day.
Right.
What's
And
the
then
most
they've got-
popular thing
and then
of
there's
every part of things that I can put on my
big
body?
gold chain on to boot with some stuff on
There
the
was a
wrist
lot
and
of
stuff.
really great, like, late 80s outfits going on.
So, like, where we're totally consuming everything that they're physically making, they are all at once consuming our, like, 40 or 50 years worth of culture.
Right.
All at one time. Because those floodgates are open. Like, the government, while blocking Google, while blocking all this stuff, could really care less. Like, we got over the wall in one day. Mm-hmm. We were able to get on Facebook, on Twitter. They provide us with a VPN with this thing called Shadow Socks, which is an app, which is a proxy. Well, they've all got it, and they're all accessing American media, and they're just consuming it at an alarming rate. They're going through decades, like 5 decades worth of clothing styles in a year. Mm-hmm. So you'll see, it's all like you'll see a girl who looks like some weird bastardization of like Britney Spears and Beyonce, and then the next moment you'll see some girl that look like she's straight out of 1943 with a bonnet and a polka dot dress with looking real like classy.
And then there was a girl at one
then
point
you'll see
that looked
like
like Sailor Moon.
Right.
There's another one in Beijing. They got out of a taxi. One
Who
had
looks like Courtney Love.
One had like a schoolgirl outfit. The other one was dressed like Pikachu.
You know. So this
like
is
seriously, hood with like ears and all.
I wonder on the flip side of this, like a band from Japan or China coming over here, like what they talk about, like the sentence, this girl got out of this cab in New York wearing
hot pants.
Yeah.
Right, but so from us coming
fishnets and pasties.
So I'm not saying that what they're doing is wrong. Like that's not what I'm saying.
Well, it's just different.
What I'm saying is it's very interesting to see the consumption of American culture so quick, all at once, and to not have the context of time to understand that we probably wouldn't have gotten, you know, the punk stuff that they like without Fugazi. Because, you know, you didn't get... They didn't... You know, Fugazi and Whitechapel didn't exist at the same time. You know, Rosetta and Linkin Park don't exist on the same plane, right? Like, Chester and I don't hang out.
Right.
You know, like we probably...
There are no social circles that overlap.
Chester and I probably have a lot in common, but we've never met. We never will, because he's doing his Chester thing, and I'm just like...
Now, imagine... in like 5 years or so, these kids who are listening to Fugazi and Whitechapel, what amalgamation of music that they're going to come up with like this.
It probably will be interesting.
Yeah, this late 90s
Right.
noise rock with deathcore.
Right. I mean, when we kind of saw that in Hong Kong. We saw this in Hong Kong. We saw a band play in Hong Kong where the vocalist was very much had this like,
I was very sad that they were giving up the hair metal thing.
I'm gonna do the sing screamy hardcore thing with thrash leads and like breakdowns. Total oddball mashup, and they were good, but it was like for someone who,
as an American, you're like, whoa,
yeah,
whoa.
yeah. Like,
You are breaking so
many rules right now, and so you don't have the context for it. It was really cool to see that where it was lawless.
What's even
rules applied.
What's even better
in terms
was
of
when
this.
we got to Shenzhen, the guy that was taking us around, Basa, we saw this poster for a band, and I could have sworn that the four people on the poster were women. But he's like, no, those are guys dressed up. It was like 80s hair metal taken to an extreme because they actually looked like women.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, that's what the band in Hong Kong that played with you guys used to look like. They're starting to kick the makeup and teased hair, but all the music's the same. So we're playing like a show with them that used to look like women.
Mm-hmm.
and
Well, I mean,
but
look at
all the
Poison.
music's
Look
still
at
the
their
same.
first album. They looked like chicks.
Let's look at them.
That's an interesting leap.
I think we need
from
to
a
work
culture
into that.
looking at that and going, oh, they're supposed to look like women, which that's not necessarily what the band was going for. I mean,
Yes and no.
yeah,
It was
but
an
like,
amalgam.
but
Like
it's
an
funny for them to
androgynous
look
kind
at
of
it and just assume,
thing. Right.
like, oh, okay, we're transvestites now.
Yeah.
But so it was kind of, it was really interesting. Like we were in some guy's car one night.
Just in there.
No, it was after a
Chilling.
show. He was
Yeah.
driving us back, and he's talking to Matt Lynn Chang and myself.
The way you said it was.
And he's
funny.
like, dude, I'm so happy you guys are here. Like, I love your band. You're one of my favorite bands. And so I asked him, like, well, what else are you into? And it was this. He's like, man, I really love Devils Wear Prada. And I'm like, oh. I really wanted to like engage with this guy on like a 90s hardcore level,
Right.
Like, tell me that A Revolution in Just Listening is your favorite album of all time,
Right.
And we can talk all night long about
Tell me you have
things.
at least heard of Converge.
Right. But and this is a conversation that I had with Dave, and I talked a lot with Dave about this. They like a lot of the pop metal stuff, like these constructed projects, like I want to say Paramore, but it's not Paramore. It's what's that band with a P? Noodly metal stuff out of L.A. One guy name is like Mika or Mishka.
Periphery.
Right, like.
Yeah, that's like
All of this stuff.
opposite ends of the
Yeah,
spectrum. Right there.
I don't know what
Well,
Paramore, Periphery.
Yeah, no. I mean,
Where, like,
yeah.
where like, you got one guy who finds these hired guns, plays on an album, and like that's your band, and
Yeah.
people are interchangeable, and it's like hits a pop formula, Where in the context of our band, I don't like. We were all they were all high school friends. I was booking. We met in this like kind of. The universe just put us in the same place.
Actually, how
and we're
Rosetta was
friends.
constructed is Mike Armine had this idea for a band. He had all these songs written. He just hired us to play.
Yeah, I had all these. So like it was really.
And there was this
strange.
producer
Yeah.
who had this idea. Well, we need this kind of sensitive, overly sensitive singer guy. We need this quirky.
You were about
weird-
to say douchebag.
Yeah.
No, if he was about to say it, he would have said it.
But so they love.
There is no filter.
Yeah.
They love that like, the pop formulaic, heavy alternative.
Well,
looking metal bands.
the other thing that I find, and I don't know if this is true,
It's huge over there.
but it sounds to me, and it would be, it sounds to me like they're listening to this stuff without preconceived misconceptions or conceptions
Right.
about
Right.
like for instance, like talking about some of the hip hop stuff, like maybe if you were to hear Pitbull without all the baggage that comes with Pitbull, like you might listen to it in a different
In a different
context, and you might make
Right.
and you might make comparisons to other things, but and these people are listening to that without
All the
that
bullshit.
yeah.
And so like it's very interesting for me to deal with that. It was very
because,
interesting
like,
for me to
for-
deal with, 'cause I
I-
know all that baggage. Like
I had a confusing experience one time with my friend Scott, who had never heard the Deftones before and didn't really know much about that kind of music. And I played him the Deftones' first record, and he was like, "This sounds a lot like Korn."
You have
And
to
I was-
remember they were originally brought up in that scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
new metal.
so,
But
it
like
was
like
weird.
it wasn't until he said that where I was like, "Oh, I've never made that connection before." But because he had never heard this before and didn't have any prior knowledge of anything surrounding that band,
Yeah.
he was able to just be like, "Oh, there."
I really wish I had made like a 5-volume like mixed data CD that I could like hand out. That was just in chronological order of like, all right, like we're gonna take you from in this disc.
Mike Armine teaches China about music
1980
history.
to 1985.
1985, and in this disc we take you from 1990 to 1995, and in this disc we take you from like from Fugazi to 400 years,
Right.
and like break it up maybe regionally. Like this was the Florida Gainesville sound, and this was the Chicago sound, and this was what was going on in California, and this was like the Richmond, Virginia sound.
It sounds like It sounds like you're trying to do what the word Matt came up with while we were over there is West-splaining.
Yeah, like you want to give him the context for this, and like West-splain it to him and be like, dude, like, all right, this is why. Like, Nirvana's a great band, but here's why they were great. Here's what they did that was great.
Well, I think too, like, and that's one of the reasons I get, and it happened to me recently with the band, the Wipers, listening to their second and third album, but looking at not only listening to them and their great albums, but going back and reading about them. Holy shit, that album came out in fucking '83, and that puts what I'm hearing in context, but it also puts other things that came after that in proper context too. I'm like, well, obviously the dudes from Sonic Youth were listening to this album the year before they recorded their first album. I mean, they had to have. And then to read about how like Kurt Cobain was recorded, like he covered 2 Wiper songs. Yeah. I mean, he was a huge. You can't go from point A to point B without, that singularity in the middle. And for me, like a band like the Wipers is kind of a no pun intended, like the Rosetta Stone of music, because they're able to. Listening to them puts a lot of context into other things that I had never really put 2 and 2 together with. But it's interesting to hear you talk about a culture that has no concept of that. But
there's complete absence of context.
But that's also, you have to think how overwhelming that must be to them.
Right.
like here in one day. Imagine like well, you don't even have to imagine it. You were there. Imagine.
That's true.
I mean, imagine
for those watching at home. Imagine.
But imagine like how overwhelming it must be to have like 50-60 years worth of another culture dumped at your doorstep, and now you have the technology to absorb all of it. Like, where do you start?
Right. That's the thing. Like, there's no starting point for every person. It's different. So like our tour manager was going through a list of stuff that he was into at the time, and 90% of it was giving me like, oh god. And I was like, look, I need you to get on your computer right now. I need you to look at a band. I need you to find All Else Failed.
Well,
I need you to look up the record archetype.
All Else Failed. That's not fair. Let's be honest.
No, he was like, because he said to me, he's like, this record's so angry, and I was like, oh, if you want angry, here's.
I understand.
Yeah,
but at least give them something that's a little bit more well known. Like, don't get me wrong. I totally would spread the gospel of All Else Failed to wherever, but at least give them like Converge or something where you can go to anywhere in the U.S. and be like, this band. Oh yeah, that band.
Right. I gave them something just Philadelphia centric.
Yeah, like southeastern Pennsylvania.
I actually gave them the Delco band. Like I just gave them the smallest. Yeah. But either way, I was like, that shit is angry.
But I think too, like, in terms of our subculture, like you're in a position now where if you go back in the next 2 or 3 years, and then a band like Converge goes over there, they could actually be opening up for you over there. I mean,
I think contracts would prevent
that. No, I mean, like, seriously, but the fact that you guys went over there and when a lot of even popular bands have never even taken the time to go over there.
Has Metallica been to China?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
But look at the gap. Rosetta,
Dying
Metallica.
Fetus has been to China.
Really?
Yeah.
A lot more than you think have been to China.
Chimera apparently got paid a shitload of money to go over there. And not even when they were like Chimera. It was kind of like, Chimera.
I don't think a lot of bands have toured China the way that we have.
Right.
Like doing the train thing.
Well, if you guys go back over there and hit those same markets, like everyone that stayed, like you were saying, some people left.
Yeah.
Even a lot of people left at the shows, but the people that were there are going to bring more. I mean, that's the classic example of like one person likes it and they bring 2 or 3 friends with them the next time you guys come through.
Yeah.
So most this is all a pyramid scheme.
Most bands just fly in and play
That's
Beijing.
how we work, man.
Yeah.
And then they fly over and they play
That's how
Shanghai.
Rosetta's so successful.
But not a lot of bands do the train thing from
you
all
give your
those
CD to a friend, and they give it to 2 friends, and they give it to 2 friends.
And then those 2 friends throw it away.
Yeah.
Our pyramid sort of tops out.
It's more like a for.
More like a layered cake.
More like a trapezoid.
Great movie.
Layer Cake was a good movie.
It was an awesome movie.
Yeah.
It was such a good movie. That's how he became James Bond.
Yeah.
I just watched
What was
Karate
his
Kid
name
on
in that
Netflix.
What was that?
What was his name in that movie?
That was part of the movie.
Right. You ever seen Layer Cake?
No.
Dude.
It's a really good movie. Is this something that you would do again?
Yes, in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat.
I think Dave would have hesitations, but the rest of us would
I
be
think
pretty gung ho.
I think he would do it. I think he would do it. I think that he would do some personal things different. I think he would do it again in a heartbeat because it was a good experience. I think that coming
probably
from
avoid those dumplings next time though.
well, I mean, I have no problem.
Don't fucking go to a country that has pollution problems and then get street meat thinking that it's a good idea.
But yeah, I would.
Because
I would
then
totally
you
do it
poop
again.
water.
I would do it.
On the side of the road next to a little kid.
That was the other thing that freaked me out is the fact that what was it that one of the first show in Xiamen, I didn't really register what Matt said to me at first, but and the squat has become just a general term when we go to like some rundown place or like you go into the bathroom and it's just completely gross. It's just like it's like a squat. You're just there and whatever. So he comes out. He's like, "Oh, the bathrooms are a squatter," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then later I got to try to go to the bathroom. I go over and it's literally you have to squat to go to the bathroom. I was like, "Oh."
It's good for your.
And we encountered it. We encountered it throughout, like, the whole tour.
The best is when they're on trains.
And then, oh my gosh, I did not even want to attempt
The
that.
holes don't line up.
That was great, Matt, telling about the one time
That
he had
would
to
be
go.
a great indie game.
That's the
The
image
squatter.
that popped up
The
into my
squatter.
head.
The squatter.
Where it's just a hole above another
Oh,
hole.
you gotta line them up.
And it's just shifting, and it just goes 3, 2, 1, go.
But there was this one time on one of the
Fuck
trains.
Angry Birds.
Matt was.
I can see my kids now playing the butthole game on like their little tablets and phones at school. Squatter playing squatter.
But Matt,
Shanghai Squatter.
Shanghai Squatter.
But Matt was talking about he walked into the bathroom one time and like somebody obviously like slipped a little bit and there was a tiny little turd just hanging on the side of the squat.
Oh.
How did that turd get on the ceiling?
Oh.
How?
You
I gotta see a diagram.
But I finally just had to do it because we went. It was like the second time we went to that one restaurant in Shenzhen, and I was like, I really gotta go, and it's too ridiculous to walk back to the hotel, which is like maybe 2 blocks away, but it's still a little ridiculous. So I was like, man up, here we go. And it went okay.
Yeah, you survived.
The problem was most of the squats didn't actually have toilet paper.
I was about to ask.
had to bring your own.
What was the toilet paper?
So actually for most of the tour,
That
I
is
toured with
sensitive,
I toured with a roll of toilet paper in my backpack.
The leap of logic.
But for this one specific thing,
Incense.
I just kind
Fuck
of
toilet
like
paper.
wrapped it. There was a toilet paper roll out front next to the sink, which I guess was to like dry your hands or something. So I basically just like wrapped as much toilet paper around my hand as possible and brought it into the toilet with me and would just like squat down. I was like, here we go.
Gotta make this good. But yeah, it was. I would do it again.
It was
Easy.
What
interesting.
was your favorite show?
That place B10. That big spot we
Oh,
played.
the big one.
That was a really good time. But I honestly, the show at this place called Little Bar was a lot of fun. Because that was the night where all these girls were calling his name, going like,
No,
BJ,
that was...
marry me, BJ. And it was, Matt and I are on
That
stage
was in
like
Chengdu.
dying, dude. Yeah, Little Bar. We're dying, Matt turns to me and he
the
goes,
best part about it
this
was...
is now my favorite show of all time.
The best part about it was the fact that they couldn't even see me unless you were on the sides. Because the stage was so small, Armine had to prop up his laptop on Matt's pedal case on top of a keyboard stand, which was directly in front of the drum set. Yeah. So nobody could see me unless you were on the sides. And in the video, there's even this great part where I nervously just spin my drumsticks before we play sometimes. And there's this one point where I just sort of I ask Matt what song is next, and I lean back to roll the stick, and you hear this, woo!
Yeah. Because these girls would go to the side of the stage to look at him and take pictures. There was this
perfect view on the side of the stage, which I actually ended up messing up a couple of parts, because they would run around and be like... and I'd be like...
Is this on fire? What's happening? Am I gonna die?
What's going on? They'd be like, ah!
No worse, DJ. Girls.
Yeah. Dude, girls, and they want you. In the most carnal way possible.
I got scared that night at B10 though, because I went out afterwards with my tour manager, this guy Tong, and we went out and he dropped me and I fell asleep in the cab on the way back home.
It's the most Armine moment ever.
I fell asleep in the cab, so he wakes me up and he's like, "We're here." So I just get out with all my shit.
And then they drive off.
They drop me off a block away, down the block.
No, it wasn't even a block.
Entrance.
He said he dropped you off in front of the hotel.
I know what he said. He didn't. He dropped me off down the block from the front. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know where I am. Things look vaguely familiar. I can't read anything.
Right.
All I have is the key card to the room that has the address and the logo of the building. So I'm walking around these blocks looking for this hostel that I can't find. I am cursing this dude. I am thinking about every way I'm going to fucking tear into him the following day. Not knowing that I'm 500 feet from the entrance of the building. So after 45 minutes of wandering around, I finally I gotta ask. So I go up to this cab and I look at the guy and I just go, and I hand him the thing and he looks at me. He looks at the thing. He looks at me. He takes his phone out and he puts it in some kind of direction thing. He's like, and it just looks and he's like, and we can't talk. And he's like, points to where I am and he points to where the location is and he's like, "Duh." And I'm like, "Over here?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're close." And I was like, "Oh." He's like, "Right." And I was like, "Okay, so this way is," and I go, "Shishi," and
which he never got right.
Which is thank you, and
through it. No, it's not. It's red.
Shishi.
No, it.
Shishi.
What is it?
Shishi.
Shia.
Whatever. No, it actually does matter.
Shay.
It does matter.
He would go to
Shishi. I barked it at people.
It would just pop out. It would just roll out of his mouth.
So I walk up the block, the one block that I didn't walk up, and there's the entrance. Meanwhile, I have resigned to sleeping outside. I was like, I'm gonna sleep here. They'll find me in the morning. There's a bench.
You've uttered a satanic chant, a fatwa.
I was like, this guy cannot be a tour manager anymore. I'm just an asshole that fell asleep in the cab and got dropped off, literally 500 feet beyond the door. So it was fine. I mean, I got in and I was okay, and I was like, it's cool. It's okay. And the next morning, I confront him like, "Tom, what the fuck, man? You dropped me off down the corner. I don't know where I was." He's like, "Yeah, I was wondering why you walked off in the complete wrong direction. But then I figured that you were just out having a walk." And I was like, "Oh my God."
That would have been great. Well, we lost Armand.
Yeah.
We don't have no idea where he is.
It's the second night. And
I'm going through
There's
my
now
brain.
a local
I'm like,
legend about a guy with some luggage. White guy with a
laptop and an M-box.
Did anybody ever question you about your tattoos?
Some. Mostly about cost.
Okay.
And about they had read The Little Prince, but most about cost and like meaning and stuff like that, but not as much as I thought I would. There were some dudes. This is when Tong and I were traveling from Shanghai to wherever you guys were. Where you guys took that? Xiamen.
No, Jian.
Jian, and
that was
the 15-hour
amongst two 14-hour plane rides to get to China and back. We also took a 14-hour train ride with like 9-year-olds running around and punching each other and kicking our seats and yelling all the time.
I missed out.
I had earplugs in and it was still ridiculous.
I missed out on that. And
14 hours and these parents I wanted to strangle.
I'll show it myself. These kids were talking about my tattoos. They had awful like prison ink, like done on a train. It was all jaggedy, and they were, and then Tom was laughing, and I'm like, and they leg off the train. He's like, they were commenting that your tattoos were very expensive. Yeah.
America.
Look at this fucking guy with his straight lines and his impeccable color work.
And his color.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wild.
What an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Go and get a proper tattoo. Ass.
Yeah. But it was interesting.
I had my tattoo done in the back of a moving truck. Fuck you.
Yeah. On the moving truck to the prison camp.
I didn't get Hep C. So
how dare you not have some form of problem?
How dare you not have liver damage due to your skin discoloration? But yeah, it was a good tour. I'd do it again.
You?
I think so.
You think so?
I think so.
Yeah, why the uncertainty?
He's afraid of girls.
Yeah.
He's popular over there.
Yeah.
That was a little
I
weird.
need my own escorts and armed guards. And
I just want to, duck in the back and play World of Warcraft, man.
I think the thing that troubled you the most was lugging all that gear.
That was so annoying.
I think that's what
it wasn't even a few days in, and I'm just like, dear Christ, why doesn't this case have wheels?
Because like I said, you have to wake up, get to the lobby, bring all the gear down to the lobby to get in a van that would drive you to the train station. But you got dropped off at the train station, and you would have to walk at least a mile and a half across the pavilion into the train station.
My drum case now has it's starting to wear on the bottom because I used to when you're moving in and out of a venue or putting it into a van or something, it's normally just you pick it up and you carry it for the short distance, or you pulled the whole awkward thing and carry it the short distance. It's now scuffed and wearing down on the bottom because I'm just screw it, I'm dragging this thing.
Because you'd have to go into the train station, get your stuff checked through the x-ray machine, you get patted down, then you had to walk across the center of across the actual main area, across the lobby where all the shops are, down a flight of stairs, up a flight of stairs, down another escalator, through a tunnel, down another tunnel. It's really deep, cavernous,
and then there might be a train.
And then you get to your train, and then when you get off the train, you've got to once again go from deep underground, up a flight of stairs, down a flight of stairs, up an escalator, across the pavilion.
Then in an elevator.
Then an elevator, and then you got to go outside, drag your shit across the plaza to the cab or the van. So it's a lot of it's all day you're doing loading in and loading out from the
I got
show.
extra calluses on my hands, not from drumming.
I think if that were removed from the situation, every one of us would be without a doubt.
right.
That was the biggest burden. And
carrying Matt's head around.
Dude, that head sucks. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
so you
had so think about two people, and you'd watch this because two people after walking for a good 15 minutes with this thing, they would have to start to switch sides. And then you would see after 5 minutes they would rotate sides every 5 minutes from lugging this head.
Dude, even just carrying that thing from the back of KFN to the front door, I was miserable.
I'm convinced that the reason that we've torn through so many vans is because of the weight of that head.
Well, also the fact that every piece of Matt's gear is its own 100 pounds or something like that.
So but that tour,
I mean, my drums are hollow. It can't be those.
Yeah, dude.
They're just pieces of round wood.
The most that, the heaviest thing I'm sure for you is the cymbals, yeah?
Yeah. The cymbals were the biggest thing. Which I think next time we do anything like that, I'm going to bring my snare case and I'm going to get a new cymbal backpack. Because I didn't want to bring mine because mine's sort of like falling apart. Because I've had it for like 2 decades. So I think I'm going to get a new cymbal backpack and bring that. And then get the snare drum separately. Because that big case, as nice as it is to have just one check bag and it's fine and it's still underweight for flying, it is the most cumbersome thing ever, especially since it has no wheels.
I was going to say, why, not to get off topic of that, why doesn't that head case have wheels?
We've never needed it to have wheels yet.
Bullshit.
I don't think we have. Like, I hate to say it, man up, hold it against your chest, and walk the 15 feet it takes for him to be able to, then leave. And then it's Matt's problem.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get it from the van into the venue, it becomes Matt Weed's problem. Like, who takes it? Rosetta very passive-aggressively leaves that and the bass cap for last. It's like, who's going to be the asshole who gets it? And then there's the, well, look, I got the head. You got to get the bass cap.
Yeah. Or in the reverse, hey, I was one of the 2 guys on the bass amp. You're getting the head.
You're getting the head. But once you get it in the venue, it's Matt Weed's problem. But up until now, but I do agree, it needs casters now if he's going to be doing this kind of.
Did something happen?
Camera.
Did we run out?
I think so.
Wow.
Show's over.
Can you fade the black in that conversation instead of the song fading?
Well, the audio's still going.
Oh,
What?
is it really?
Fuck you people.
Yeah.
Now I can stare right at the camera and not feel awkward. How do you feel about that? I'm looking right at you.
Looking right at you. I'm talking right at you.
I'm grabbing my Cormon's cock.
No, you're not.
Don't do it.
Stop it. I'm leaving home in a couple days. I don't know why that was.
And end.
Thank you for listening to the More Better Narrative podcast. Find us at mbnpodcast.com or on iTunes. For more information, visit us on Twitter or Facebook at mbnpodcast.com or email us at morebetternarrative@gmail.com.